Hello and welcome to Coop's Corner. I'm your host, Cooper Petagna, and today is a very special episode for a lot of different reasons because we're going to talk about recruiting, which we haven't done on this show before, but we welcome in the most special guest to date, my long-lost friend, Andrew Ivins, co-host of the former 105, co-host of the former Preps to Pros, Oyster Boy forever in our hearts. Andrew, good to see you, buddy. Glad to have you on. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Cooper, man. It's been a while. You want to go really behind the scenes. I haven't been in a Riverside podcast recording studio in a long time. I forgot how to pull it up, man. No, I'm doing really good. It's been fun to see you dip your toe into this whole college football thing. I think you have a very bright mind and a really unique perspective. Having built rosters that have made the college football playoff, man. So I'm doing good. I know you're adjusting to life as a new dad, me as well. So I'm doing good, man. And hey, look, like this is the crazy time of the year with signing day. What? Now you're gonna make me do some math here. Like 10
No,
days
2 weeks
away.
away,
Yeah, a
right?
little. Yeah. So
First
um,
first week of December.
I know
Um,
it's exciting. This is fun. This is like when it's supposed to be fun.
that's right. A little riff back and forth, just talking ball. I think the cool thing about this, in case you don't know, Andrew and I obviously used to work very, very closely together on the rankings team at 24/7 Sports, and we still work together in some regards. But Andrew and his team, Hudson Standish, Gabe Brooks, do a phenomenal job. And the reason that we wanted to have Drew on today is not only because signing day is 2 weeks away, but we just came out with our most recent update, and there's no person better on planet Earth to break it down than Drew. Drew, so let's kind of start there. I think the cool thing about this is like, I know some of these names. I don't know all of these names. There's guys that are, I'm sure, emerging in the 11th hour, as always. But on this show, we've talked a lot about the coaching searches, and there's 12 vacancies open right now. And I get a lot of people that ask me, hey, how important is it to get a coach in before National Signing Day, and with conference championships on December 6th, the last games being played the following weekend on November 28th, the weekend before. I'm kind of curious because I'm looking through the decommitment list on 24/7 Sports, and there's not these big splashy names that you would probably expect for all the coaching movement. Do you just think that's one, do you think that's correct? Like, do you feel that yourself? And two, is that just like a sign of the time in the NIL era?
Yeah, Coop, I kind of want to throw it back at you, right? I mean, we saw all these jobs open, and I think everyone, athletic directors, search committees, board of trustee members, like has this vision where it's, all right, we got to have a guy by signing day. And as we've gotten closer and closer, all these jobs are still open. And, you know, I think from my perspective, look, if you want to make the college football playoff, if you want to play for a national title, you still have to recruit through the high school ranks. Like that's still got to be the spine of your roster. And certainly there are examples of where we've seen transfer portal heavy rosters break through. I mean, Florida State a few years ago, Texas Tech is doing it obviously this year. So you certainly can, you know, catch fire in a pan, I think. I don't know how sustainable that is. I can't say that word for some reason this
I'm
morning,
sorry, it's
and
early.
it is early. So I guess like now that we are approaching signing day, my thought is, and where my mind goes is, it's like I think it's more important to get the right fit for your program than it is to make the wrong hire and just race to get a recruiting class across the finish line. I think you got to get the right guy in place, and I don't think anyone has made a mistake yet and maybe picked the wrong guy with the short-term goal of winning signing day in mind and not thinking big picture. So, what's really unique, I think, about this coaching carousel and where we're at is signing days as early as it's ever been the first week of December. I mean, Cooper, a few years ago, me and you were doing like a signing day show 3 days before Christmas. That was this early signing period. So, it's just certainly unique with the rev share being brought in and now you got one transfer portal window. I don't know. It's fascinating. My theory is, all it's going to take is one unexpected move. And then we could see chaos. Really, I think at any point, I think it's a ticking time bomb in terms of someone taking a job and then these recruiting classes kind of falling apart, or not falling
Uh,
apart, but seeing some movement.
right, I feel like the panic, uh, well, I feel like the lack of panic is reflected in the coaching searches, if that kinda makes sense. A lot of people obviously asking about LSU, what happens with Lane Kiffin if he were to leave Oxford? And Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, Lamar Brown's still in the boat, right? They got another big defensive tackle that they like as well. Um, what's his name, by the way?
Richard Anderson. You're talking
Richard
about
Anderson.
at LSU, correct?
Right, right, who you love. So I just wonder, like, uh, how much is that, and we don't need to, like, hash this out and continue to hash this out, but how much of that is due to the fact that there are already financial agreements in place? I'm committed to the program. I like the fit. Sure, I don't know who the head coach is gonna be, but if I'm committed to a place like LSU or Florida or Auburn or Penn State, I know they're gonna go out there and they're gonna get a quality coach because I know how they see themselves. So it almost kind of feels like, "Hey, I'm good with the money. Uh, plug it in, and whoever it is, we'll make do with it, and then we'll reevaluate at the end of the term, whether that's 1 to 2 to 3 years down the line."
Coop, can I also bring this up, right? So you brought up LSU's recruiting class. There hasn't been a ton of attrition, right? I think LSU's its own beast. Guys in the boot want to stay in the boot. I think there was a lot of pressure. You would know it better than certainly I would. But for I've been doing this for 10 years, right? I think the only guy that has had a track record and had success going into Louisiana and prying these, blue chip guys out was Nick Saban. And Nick Saban did it at Alabama after he coached at LSU. The other reason why I don't think we've seen a ton of movement, right, is because how many schools at the top of the food chain are in a position where they can go out and they can get aggressive, where they know, hey, our head coach is coming back. We've had on-field success to some degree this season. We're in the college football playoff conversation. There is stability across the board. I mean, really, for me, there's only, I think, two teams that two schools that I can say for sure are in that category. I think it's Miami and I think it's Ohio State. And I think both of them have busted out the spatula and flipped a ton of guys. Like, they are in the position where they can go out and they can watch all of the top talent, figure out, okay, this guy is playing good, and they can go, start communicating with that individual, and then they can present an offer that's probably better than some of these other schools. So I think that's what's also unique. Like, how many of these schools that are aligned financially through the coaching staff have, their footing right now where they can be aggressive. So I think that's also played into it as well.
Oregon, obviously one of those teams. I don't know if it's just me, but on my timeline, I feel like Indiana's gotten a little active here in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, they've been really fun, I think, from my perspective, because when you look at Indiana and all the success Signetti has, like, it doesn't make sense to me, Cooper. Like, Bud Chip's blue chip ratio, I don't think Indiana qualifies. And you look at the roster and you got to credit Signetti, you got to credit all his guys, that staff coming in from James Madison. Like, they certainly have an eye, but to me, it's like they don't, it doesn't do it for me on the recruiting trail, that operation. Like, are they ever going, is this sustainable? Are they going to take the next step? And I know it's silly to say that given the results that they've had at Indiana, making the playoff last year, everything they've done this year. And I've been wondering, okay, are they going to kick it into drive on the recruiting front? And I think they have, right? They got this kid, Cavante Huggin, out of the state of Florida. They flipped him from Louisville back during the summer months. And, he's one of these tweeners, right? Cooper, I'm going to use the term that everyone throws in our face. He's a tweener. He's like a
Be
6'1".
careful.
Yeah, he's like a 6'1", edge. Is he a linebacker? Is he a three technique? They think he's the next Mikhail Karma, right? And that's a kid that they landed that was a 0-star prospect. So yeah, Indiana, it's been fun to see them. They're also taking advantage, I think, of the uncertainty at Penn State, right? They're going after this safety, Matt Sieg, who was committed to the Nittany Lions. Notre Dame's in there, Pittsburgh's in there. But yes, to answer your question, you've seen a little bit more from Indiana, and I think that's fun. I think that is good for the sport, the dispersion of this talent.
All right, guys, just a reminder, you are locked in to Coop's Corner right now with special guest Andrew Ivins breaking down everything recruiting before National Signing Day. If you're watching the show, do me a favor and make sure to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. That's where you can find us. You can also find me on X at Cooper Petagna, also podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave a rating and leave a review. I got to call you guys out. You're getting pretty lazy. Andrew and I went through this on the 105. We weren't getting the questions that we needed. We weren't getting the comments that we need. We need an active base here. I don't know about you, Drew. I mean, every time we were on the 105, people would text you or they would DM you a question. It's like, hey, put it on the podcast, throw a rating on there. That's kind of where we're at right now. And Andrew Ivins, Drew, tell the people where they can find you on X.
Andrew underscore Ivins for now, right? Like
Easy enough. Let's go. Give the man a follow. Let's go, baby. All right, Drew. I kind of want to break this down into loosely and kind of let you cook a little bit. We're going to go macro in terms of kind of how we see the teams and where you see teams really kind of moving up the board in your eyes. Some teams maybe taking a step back. What I like about your job and what we used to do is it's the projection piece. You can kind of see things coming a little bit further ahead than everybody else because you get to see the next wave of the 2 to 3 years after you stack classes. So I'll read off the top 5 ranked recruiting classes in the country, and we'll kind of go from there. USC at number 1, Alabama at number 2, Georgia at number 3, Notre Dame at number 4, Oregon at number 5, and then Ohio State at number 6. I think you and I would both admit sometimes it's not as easy as looking at the top 5 programs in the country and saying, oh, those are my favorite. So for you, like, are there 2 to 3 programs that you've watched, and whether they're just down on quantity, but you really like their quality or whatever it is that you look at and you're like, you know what, man, like this could be not a program defining class, but like a foundational class just in terms of maybe elevating a program or helping build a foundation for a program? Who are the 2 to 3 classes that kind of stand out to you?
I think you got to start at the top with USC, and me and you have been very harsh on the Trojans over the years, and they go out and they land general manager Chad Bowden from Notre Dame, right? And I think me and you were wondering, okay, this time last year or 10 months ago, what does it look like? And you look up and USC's number 1 in the rankings, and I thought the runway was there heading into the season because USC, was a softer start on the schedule. And Cooper, I mean, you look up this weekend, USC, I think the sports line projections, I don't know if you get those emails, like if they beat Oregon, there's like an 80% chance they're going to make the college football playoff.
Right.
So this class, they assembled it from the jump. Chad Bowden comes in, and what does USC do? They start trying to recruit locally. That was something that the previous regime there in LA, I mean, it sounds so simple to recruit your backyard, but USC really didn't do that. We saw Oregon and Dan Lanning come down and just get whatever they wanted from that area. There were schools from other parts of the country coming in and landing those individuals. And still, certainly that happens. But I think USC's commitment to recruiting in-state prospects certainly stands out. The second thing, Cooper, I mean, this is a recruiting class of 35 players as it stands right now. I think there's a chance they might add a few more. And, if you're just a mild consumer of recruiting through the high school ranks, I mean, this is completely new. These monster recruiting classes over 30. I mean, yeah, you go back to 10 years ago, remember Ole Miss would have these monster recruiting classes, but that kind of went away. Given the current roster rules and the player movement and the transfer portal, you have the ability to bring in, with the rosters expanding to 105, all these individuals. So, I think USC, their commitment to the high school recruiting certainly stands out. And then on top of that, this recruiting class, in my opinion, they have difference makers. They have teams that are going to they have guys that are going to keep them in the conversation, for the college football playoff spot and for, a Big Ten title, right? You say foundational class. I think that fits this to a T for USC. I mean, Kenye Pepe, our number 1 ranked offensive tackle, he's the gem. And I've talked to people there inside the USC facilities, and they're already penciling him in as a starter, hopefully at left tackle. But if not, I think they're going to give him a look at right tackle. For those not familiar, I mean, Pepe, 6'7", 320 pounds. He wears it like it's 285. He's at IMG Academy, which has had, if we look at the past 4 NFL drafts. They've had an offensive lineman. That school has produced an offensive lineman that has gone in the first round in 3 of them. That's going to continue with Francis Mauanoa. That's going to continue with Jordan Seaton out there. I mean, these kids that coming out of IMG are ready to go, right? The Tyler Bookers, the Evan Neals, the JC Lathams. To me, having spent a ton of time at IMG, right? And I might not be the best OL evaluator in the world. I think Pepe's on par with those guys. I think he's going to step in. Sure, yeah, there's going to be some lumps out there, but this is their left tackle of the future. And it's a huge win for USC, which has had to spend a ton of money on veteran offensive linemen over the years. So yeah, they're probably paying a premium now, but hey, you got this guy for 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how it shakes out. So, Kenye Pepe, yeah, I think he's the headliner. They got some other offensive linemen I like. Maybe not as highly rated, but these are guys with monster ceilings and developmental traits. The defensive line as well for the Trojans. I mean, they go into Texas, they get Jamani Winfield, a top 64 prospect for us. I mean, Cooper, think about it. Texas is kind of like the center of college football right now with A&M and Texas Tech and the Longhorns, right? They've been in the conversation, and they go in there and they get Jamie and Winfield, who, has some Bear Alexander to him, right? He's a twitchy guy in the middle that can create pressure and dent protection. They got Luke Wafel out of New Jersey. He's a kid that had 25 sacks as a senior, big power edge rusher, kind of reminds me of Jack Sawyer. So, I think USC, this recruiting class, to me, the top is really, really good. They got some guys in the back that, I think you hope at some point down the line are going to be, starters. So I think the one of the storylines heading into it is like USC is going to finish probably with the number 1 class. And it's not, it's not smoke and mirrors, right? Like, this is a really talented group.
I feel like part of the reason that the quantity is obviously so high on the high school side is because it's been a massive correction for Chad Bowden, Max Steinecker over there in USC's front office because of the way that the roster had been constructed previously to their arrival. And that's really kind of my next question on USC is I want to follow up. Chad Bowden, if you don't know anything about him, is a general manager at USC who came over from Notre Dame, did a phenomenal job under Marcus Freeman. How much of what you've seen in just the high school construction of this recruiting class do you feel like, all right, this kind of has some Notre Dame, Chad Bowden fingerprints, maybe just with a West Coast flavor to it?
I think absolutely. I think the other thing that stands out, I know I just mentioned a guy in New Jersey. I mentioned a guy in Texas. Obviously, Pepe's at IMG, but, conference realignment, like, we don't talk about that much. Like, USC is in the Midwest. Like, they've gone into the Midwest and they've gotten some individuals. And I know recruiting has changed so much, and, it's the compensation and the dollar sign and everything. But I think USC playing in the Big Ten and having games in Chicago and Michigan has allowed them to go and recruit those regions. And, their quarterback commit, Jonas Williams, he's out of Illinois. He has rewritten record books when it comes to passing. He's a 4-year starter. He was a kid there that was at the Elite 11 finals. I think he's like one of the best point guards in the class in terms of the quarterbacks. He's not your prototypical frame. He's not a guy that's going to gash you a ton with his legs, but he gets the ball out so fast and he's very accurate to the first few levels. He's also, Cooper, the youngest quarterback in the top 247. So, they go and get him. They go into Ohio and they get Elbert Hill, a cornerback that has 20 career interceptions. And again, you talk with the people at USC, they think that's a kid that's going to step in. So, it'll be interesting to see what 2027 looks like, because I think a lot of Chad's base was in the Midwest, because that's where Notre Dame really, targets a lot. And obviously they could touch all different parts of the country with that brand. But I think it makes sense. There's some height, weight, speed philosophy in here, right? And if the guys maybe don't, meet your threshold in certain areas, well, they're really, really good football players on Friday nights, and that they're bringing a higher floor to the equation.
It's a good example of pairing a head coach that is not only a capable head coach, a capable quarterback developer, but a capable play caller as well. And I think when Lincoln Riley got hired from Norman, Oklahoma to USC, I think a lot of the question was, all right, how is this style going to fit in the Big Ten, especially in the trenches? And this is a great example of modern college football where you have a guy like Chad Bowden who's learned under Marcus Freeman, obviously put together a national championship contender there, takes all the experiences from being at Notre Dame, applies that to USC, and now you have this fit of essentially, hey, I'm going to let you run the personnel side. I'm going to lean on you from that standpoint, especially in the trenches. And then I'm going to really kind of focus on getting the most out of each individual player and maximizing this team. And if you're USC, you have a year right now, like you said, I mean, they're one win from beating Oregon, really being in the thick of things from the CFP race. It's strange to me because in some instance they haven't met expectations, but now you kind of see them evening out a little bit and finding smooth air as they get ready for the next 2 to 3 years, where it really seems like Lincoln Riley and USC are going to have to make a jump there. So
Can I
USC, yeah, go
add
ahead.
one last thing on USC? Was out there this summer, and I think if you're in the Big Ten, like this should be something that has you concerned. USC's facilities were the most disappointing thing I've ever been to. And like, I'm not trying to knock USC. I'm really not. But Cooper, I've been to group of six programs. The weight room's nicer. The locker room's nicer. Like I walked out of there and I'm like, wow, like this is not, the waterfalls and the video boards and all that stuff. With that being said, USC is about to open a brand new facility. And I think if you recruit against them, you're in the Big Ten, like that could take it to another level, right? They're going to have this. Who knows how much it costs? I mean, they showed us the construction site. Like, I, I think some kids, and maybe not all of them, a little bit of a holdup when you get to USC. And yeah, I mean, the campus is awesome, but like the facilities leave a lot to be desired. And now, guess what? Hey, they're opening up this monster building, which could be one of the last of its kind as we transition more to paying the players and the revenue share. Like it's going to be like the NFL, right? We're going to see that report card, hey, grade everyone's facilities, and you know, it's just going to be what it is. Like I don't know how much of an arms race there's going to continue to be in the years to come.
It's crazy that it's taken this long for USC to kind of hit their stride on that standpoint. From an alignment standpoint, give Jen Cohen, their AD, a lot of credit there in the job that she's done. But to your point, I mean, it's not. You just don't want it to be a negative, right? Is it a
Yeah.
net positive? Maybe not, but you don't even want it to be
In the
in the
conversation.
conversation
Yeah.
as for a reason as to why it wouldn't be an option. So USC getting it cranking, the number one ranked recruiting class with how many commitments right now, Drew? I mean, north of
35.
35. That's crazy. That's a very high amount of high school kids that they're taking, but a year that we mentioned they need it. So USC is one of those teams, Drew. I said 2 to 3 teams. If you could give me, let's go a little bit of a more abbreviated pitch, but maybe two more teams,
Okay.
not USC, not Alabama, not Georgia, but what are some teams to you where you're like, okay, I really like that. I can kind of see it coming together.
Okay, I'm gonna give you an easy one here, and then the second one I thought about this morning on my walk. I'm like, man, I have not shown this class any love, and I think it's a really good class. Notre Dame. Let's start there, and then the second one's going to be Tennessee. I mean, Marcus Freeman, what he's been able to do. Coop, I'm trying to add it up right now. They got, I think, like double-digit guys inside the top 247. Notre Dame does. They got 2 5-stars. I got Rodney Dunham, an edge rusher out of North Carolina. I love this kid. I've been super bullish on him from the jump. Young for the grade. He can bend. He can go speed to power. Got injured as a junior. He's healthy as a senior. 4 sacks in his first 4 games. Anytime I think there's a knee injury, you get a little bit concerned. All right, is he going to lose a step? All right, is he still moving as freely as he is? Rodney Dunham is. And that was a big win for Notre Dame in a part of the country where you're going up against everyone. I mean, Georgia's had a ton of success in that Charlotte area, right? Tennessee's had a ton of success. Ohio State, we've seen them in there. Michigan has been in the Carolinas, and Notre Dame identified him early, got him committed. I think he's a future difference maker for the Irish. The other one is tight end Ian Primer. We as we constructed these rankings, we were very cautious about tight ends. I think the practice of betting on tight ends, it's not fun, right? It's not a wise one because it's such a late blooming position. And there was about a group of, I think, 5 tight ends that we all loved. And we thought, hey, these guys are a little bit different. Ian Primer, I come in with an open mind, and it's like, man, this guy might be the next Brock Bowers. And I thought Mark
Mm.
Bowman, who was headed to USC, was the potential, next Brock Bowers. But Ian Primer, checks off every box, Cooper. I mean, he could play basketball for a high major. He's at Great Bend High School there in Kansas, so it's not the best competition, but turn on the tape and this guy is doing everything you want him to do. He takes snaps at quarterback, he takes snaps at running back, he's attached, he's detached, he's in the wing, he's out in the perimeter, he's in the slot. Oh, he plays safety, he's running around hitting people. Oh, he's also returning punts and kickoffs for touchdowns. I think this guy's the real deal. You think about Notre Dame, their tradition at tight end. You think about Mike Denbrock getting that position involved. He might not be a guy year 1 and year 2. We might look up in 2028 and 2029, and Ian Primer could be the next Mackey Award winner. Like, we think that highly of him. So those are the 2 like guys at the top. Okay, this isn't going to be surprising to you either. Notre Dame's secondary class, elite. Right. It's elite dudes. It's much of the same for them. It's a bunch of individuals that I think can play 4 or 5 different spots in the secondary. Hudson Standish on the scouting team absolutely loves Joey O'Brien. Big, rangy safety. He's the best robber in the class, right? His instincts, ball awareness. I know it's 7-on-7, overtime, OT7 championship. Roll your eyes all you want. This kid led that league in interceptions, right? Like, he just is a ball hawk of ball hawks. They got him. They got a safety out of Orlando, Aiden Pouncey, who's had a heck of a senior season. So, Notre Dame, what they've done in the secondary over the years, like, that's not going away. Okay. And then the offensive line class, like every offensive line commit you watch for Notre Dame, you're like, man, this guy's a dude, right? This guy's got the traits. He's going to move people at the point of attack. So, I think Marcus Freeman, what he has been able to do is take the level of recruiting that we saw under Brian Kelly, and he's just getting more out of it. He's just getting more out of it, right? So, yeah, I mentioned the 5 stars. I mentioned the O-line, right? I mentioned the secondary. Oh, and by the way, they got like 5 wide receivers that are all in the 4-star conversation for us, right? They got Larry Fitzgerald's kid, Devin Fitzgerald. They got Dylan Faison, who's Jordan Faison's brother, number 1 ranked lacrosse recruit out there. They got a bunch of different guys, and that has been kind of an Achilles heel for them. Oh, and by the way, they got 2, top 247 ranked running backs from the state of Texas. So love what Notre Dame's doing. And then Tennessee, right? I said I haven't given the Vols much love. They got 3 5-stars committed, Cooper, right? They got Faison Brandon, our number 2 player, 5-star quarterback. I think he's a perfect fit for what Josh Heupel wants to do. He's in the same archetype of Hendon Hooker, and they're from the same area in North Carolina. I think he's a better passer than Hendon Hooker. Now, is he as elastic of an athlete? No, but I think if you're a Tennessee fan, I think if the Vols are regularly on your SEC schedule, you need to think about a guy that can coordinate the RPOs, that has the speed to reach the perimeter in that, but at the same time, he's a very methodical passer, right? He doesn't put the football in harm's way. So we love Faison Brandon. We loved him from the jump. It was a guy that got hurt as a senior, returns out of nowhere. We thought he was shutting it down. And then you watch the cut up and you're like, yep, this is why I loved Faison Brandon. You love the total package with him. And Cooper, the other thing, the fact that he returned, I think, says so much about his football character, about how the way the kid is wired. I mean, with all of these dollar signs that are out there, with all the deals that are in place, for him to return and try to win a second state title, I think that says a lot. The 2 other 5-stars in there, Tristan Keys, the wide receiver, I think he's got the best ball skills in the class right now. Is he an absolute burner? No, but he is a sudden mover. He's got rare bounce, elite tracking skills. I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you need to think of a better version of Chris Brazzell, right? Like, I think he's in a similar mold of that. We know how Chris Brazel has unlocked some things for the offense. Really like him. I think our player comp on him, CD Lamb, and that's really because of the concentration, the timing on those jump balls. Another guy that's been hurt, but when he has played as a senior, he's been excellent. And then the third 5-star, our guy, Big Squish, right?
Mm,
Uh,
love Big
Cana-
Squish.
yeah, Canadian-born offensive tackle. He's a monster. I think listed 6'7", 330. He's a higher center of gravity individual, but he can play in his own scheme. And for Tennessee, they already have their left tackle of the future in David Sanders, who, Cooper, I don't know if you've been checking the PFF, really, really good in pass protection here now that he's healthy in year one. I think Osenda, you plug him in on the right side, and Faison Brandon's got his two bookends moving forward. And then just on top of that, I mean, some other guys with Tennessee, I think they got the best linebacker duo committed. TJ White, he's kind of like Jalen Walker, on ball, off ball. Braden Rouse, another guy out of Georgia. I mean, Tennessee's doing a lot of good things. I remember, Cooper, back in June, I did a radio interview. Tennessee was sitting like 40th in the rankings. And it's like, what is going on here? You look up now, and they're in the top 10, and they got what I would consider not foundational pieces of their offense, but like this is the identity of their offense moving forward.
They don't get enough credit for how good they've been under Josh Heupel as a talent identification program.
No.
And the other part about it is it's not just high school, but it's, the job that they did in the transfer portal this year. I think they only took 7 or 8 players. But what they were able to net out of that was incredibly impressive. Two starting offensive linemen with Wendell Moe and Sam Pendleton. You got Star Thomas as well. You got Colton Hood on the other side of the ball, who is in the mix to be a first-round draft pick, and a guy that we had like an 87 rating on. So that's the equivalent of a low priority free agent in terms of NFL draft talk. So they've done a really, really good job, where I think a lot of people are quick to kind of overlook them and just say, oh, they're hanging around the top 10. In this case, obviously they are in the top 10, but they really kind of are typically in that 10 to 15 mold, but they get the most out of these guys, man. And the other part about it that kind of sticks out to Tennessee, they don't really get over their skis in terms of geography, but they do take advantage of areas where they can get into. And Tristan Keys is certainly probably an NIL recruitment, but being able to keep Big Squish home and Gabriel Osenda, being able to get TJ White out of Mississippi is huge. Even Darian Albert, a guy that we really like, quick twitch, explosive, kind of interior offensive lineman, kind of a guy similar to maybe like a guy like Tyree West, right, that they were able to get out of Georgia. Just guys that I remember evaluating in the state of Tennessee. Kamari Blair was a big guy that I liked that moved well. Zay Anderson was a silky corner. Even Tyreek King from Knoxville Catholic. Like, teams that know who they are and recruit to who they are, that's really where you have the continuity and the sustainability really blossom.
And they're thinking outside the box. They got a tight end from NFL Academy in Europe there, man. Former Austria basketball national team dude. I saw him practice in Orlando. Kid's got a Cooper insane story. Like, NFL Academy, they have like 30 different countries represented on the team. He's got like this Philippines flag on his helmet. It was actually fun for me because like I knew all these flags, and I'm like, I thought you were from Austria. He's like, well, my dad is from the Philippines and he's a sommelier and we've just moved all around the country. I'm like, you are the
Oh,
most
hell
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, you're the most interesting man here on this field. So, no, I would echo all of that. 9 commits from Tennessee. And they know it's like we're playing EA Sports 2026. Like, they have their pipelines around the country and they go in there, right? They go into Georgia. They go up into New Jersey. They're in Mississippi. They got a kid out of Utah, South Mola, who's a two-way guy. Like, they kind of they know who they are, and they take advantage.
Luke Thompson, have you watched him?
Oh, man, you're going to bring up like the one guy I haven't watched on this
No, I
list?
just remember him. Franklin, Tennessee. Shout out Franklin, Tennessee. Great shopping, great coffee over there. Great. If you're living in Nashville, make the 20-minute drive. Franklin, Tennessee. That's a spot, bougie spot. But this kid kind of came up out of nowhere. I got tipped off on him by a player personnel assistant at Yale. And he said, "Hey, we're all over this kid, but he's obviously not going to be a guy that's going to play in the Ivy Leagues." And then it's cool to kind of see him on a commit list at Tennessee. I believe had a pretty impressive track and field background, and that's part of it too, man. Just being able to develop and dig out guys in your state that have the type of trade set you want. But anything else on Tennessee, man? Because I like the fact that you brought them up because marrying the high school side of recruiting with the portal side of just being opportunistic and not having to volume shoot on the portal side, but being able to pick out quality. I think that's the marriage that everybody's looking for.
Yeah, and where my mind goes is like already in the 2027 cycle. So those are the juniors. Like they have 3 kids committed, but I love all 3 of them. And I think a true, like, if you are trying to file a storyline in your head to keep track of, like, what are they able to do at quarterback in the 2027 cycle? They're in it for this kid Izzy Abrams Cooper, who I think you're familiar with out of Illinois. I think he's another kid that fits Josh Heupel's system. Could potentially finish as a 5-star quarterback, right? Can they go back to back 5 stars, right? Because you look at Alabama, their quarterback room from a on paper situation, it's going to be the best in college football for the next few years. So, I think they're off to a great start in 2027. Like this isn't just a one hit wonder. I know you've mentioned they're normally around 10 to 15. Well, hey, if you stack 4 of those classes together, you're absolutely going to be in the CFP mix, and they're already off to a hot start in 2027.
You mentioned Alabama, obviously with Ty Simpson, who, if you have not watched him this season, is just playing at an exceedingly high level.
Cheeky 5
Obviously,
star.
it's crazy, man. Yeah, one of those guys that I think, when we're looking at the 5 stars of that class, what was it, 22?
Yeah,
You had Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik, Connor Wegman, and Simpson. I believe in that order.
I'm
And
pulling it up.
Simpson was the one guy, he was in my area. And I got to admit, I wasn't like over the moon convicted. I'm like the guy, obviously like him from a processing standpoint, playing a lower level of competition. Tools are kind of like above average. And then he sits for 3 years. You don't see him. He's playing behind Jalen Milroe. And then this year has just been unbelievable between the fit with Ryan Grubb. Alabama hasn't been able to run the ball, and they've been a pretty one-dimensional offense. And to see him just get better and better and better, and like even looking at the Florida State game, I thought he played well enough to win. And then there's just more and more confidence with him every game, even vocally as a leader. I think that's really kind of important. So it's going to be fascinating just because he lacks the experience that I think NFL teams want, but you got to pick somebody, right? So,
Okay,
but to
you said Alabama can't run the ball. I'm going to give you a transition right here. My pick for like freshman of the year right now is Xavier Crowell, running back, 5-star, committed to the Crimson Tide. He's a reclass Cooper. Dude, I think this kid's awesome. I think he is a potential bell cow, and it's funny. At one of the assistant pros in my neighborhood, huge Alabama fan, and I was talking to him. He's like, we just can't run the football, and I guess I hadn't diagnosed that big of a problem. And I'm like, well, hey, you guys got one on the way. And talked to some people there in Tuscaloosa, and they think this guy is the headliner of the offensive group. I think what Alabama is doing on defense, love it, love it, love it. Offense, it's all about this Xavier Crowell kid. He's at Jackson there in Alabama. I think he's gone for over 100 yards in every game this season, averaging 13.1 yards per carry. Cooper, like, you watch his teammates because you're trying to like break them down and write them up, and your eyes just go back to Crowell. He's got the speed, he's got the power, he's got the vision, he's got the instincts. Like, he is my pick right now. If you had to say, all right, who's going to be the Malachi Tony of next year? Who's going to be the Jeremiah Smith from the year prior? I think it's this Crowell kid. I think he's step and play, ready to go. He's going to add juice to that rotation, which seems to be in a little bit of a flux.
Yeah, I talked to a personnel staffer in the SEC who said Hey, Alabama's running back room, just in terms of talent, not where you would expect it to be. And you got guys like Jamarian Miller, you got guys like Daniel Hill, who's emerged. I could dive into Daniel Hill, his background. I always laugh when, Sean McDonough is like, he's actually a pretty natural receiver. And it's like, yeah, well, the majority of the scouting process, we thought this kid was going to be like an H-back, just a guy you could move around, and was really a talented receiver coming out. Kevin Riley, also another name. Richard Young, we haven't seen a lot from. Like, all these guys were like top 247 guys. It's not like they're you know not talented players, but in terms of the lineage of backs that we've seen at Alabama, from Derrick Henry to Mark Ingram to, I mean, the list goes on and on with the type of guys that they've had there. TJ Yeldon, they're looking for that quality back, and we'll see. We're going to get right back to the video, but before we do, help us grow the show by liking and subscribing. It costs you absolutely nothing, and it helps us a ton. Let's get back to it. All right, buddy. Now I want to talk about the top of the board. And the top of the board just so happens to be littered with three quarterbacks. You got Keisean Henderson, committed to Houston at number 1. You have Faison Brandon, committed to Tennessee at number 2. We've talked a little bit about him. And then at number 3, you got Jarrett Curtis, currently committed to Georgia. There's been a lot of buzz about the Vanderbilt Commodores and Clark Lee sniffing around. But I kind of want to see how you separated these guys. What was the separation between Keisean Henderson? How'd you arrive there? A guy like Faison Brandon, who missed much of his senior season. And then Jarrett Curtis, who I know you and I, from when we were going back and forth on him, we weren't always the most convicted. Now he's sitting at the number 3 player in the country. So I kind of want to get into the weeds on your process and how you guys arrived here with the quarterbacks.
I'm gonna open up the hood here, and I think the past few cycles we knew who number 1 was likely going to be, and I think when you look at our rankings and you see the 3 quarterbacks at the top, it's easy to assume like, all right, we think these guys are gonna be the first round picks, and I think all of them can certainly get there. But are we as convicted in Keisean Henderson number 1 as Jeremiah Smith number 1? No. I mean, let's just be frank. The 3 quarterbacks are stacked the way they are because I don't. There isn't someone behind them at another position where it was like, yep, this is the guy. And I think the ceilings of all 3 are certainly, they can be in the converse. They can eventually walk across the stage and shake the hands with the NFL commissioners. And, give what does it look like 2 months from now in terms of how we feel about these guys? I think that's an interesting question. Keisean Henderson is done for his senior year. I'm going to get into him in a second. Faison Brandon could play another 4 games. Jared Curtis could play another 4 games as well. So we're still learning about these guys. Like we are writing the final chapter. I mean, or I should say the players are. I mean, it is almost closed, but the book is not completely closed. So I want to start there. And if you look at the grades, I don't know how many people actually like look at the numerical grades in the rankings. Like all 3 of them are 98s, right? We didn't make any of them a 99. We didn't make any of them 100 plus. That's because we kind of wanted to hold out and wait a little bit more. Why is Keisean Henderson number 1? And, I think as we got into building out the top 32, building out the 5-star field, the name that kept coming up was Keisean. And that's because he's kind of our guy. And never before has a top ranked wide receiver finished as a top ranked quarterback, let alone the number 1 player in the country. And for those not familiar, I mean, Keisean Henderson, when we first put him in the inaugural rankings for this class, so that'd have been almost 3 years ago, he was listed as graded out as a wideout. We thought he was going to catch passes or he was going to play defense. And everything since then has indicated he is a quarterback, and it's not just some run first quarterback. He can beat you from the pocket, right? And he made that transition. He bought into being a QB, and he has just aced every test since then. Now he's at the Legacy School of Sports and Sciences in Texas. Hudson Sanders, Gabe Brooks, Mike Roach, they always say it. They play like this independent road schedule. So he's not in one of these big Friday night lights type of districts where it's a slugfest every Friday. They play an independent schedule, but I think in his marquee matchups as a senior, he was the X factor. He was the difference maker, right? They go down into Louisiana and they play St. Aug, right? A team with a ton of FBS and Power Four players on defense. Keisean has his way. They play Port Arthur Memorial, which might have one of the fastest defenses in the country. Keyshawn's able to move the ball, and Cooper, the more I marinated on it with Keisean, we love him between the ears. Like it's intoxicating being around him, right? He has infectious energy. People want to be around him. And I think with where we are at right now in college football, I mean, we could bring up some of the quarterbacks that we ranked high that have completely flamed out. And it was the talent the question with these individuals? No, it was everything off the field. I'm talking about the Jaden Rashadas. I'm talking about the Malachi Nelsons. Like, if you want to bet on an individual that has the ceiling, that has the upside, Keisean Henderson is your guy. And, you know, uh, the resume, I think, was a holdup for me at certain points because statistically, he's not on par with some of these other five-star quarterbacks we've had in the past. But then you sit there, he was my favorite guy at the Elite 11 finals. I thought when he threw at the Elite 11 finals, there was a different energy in the air. And I know it's shirts and shorts. Not every quarterback is there, but I've been going to the Elite 11 finals for a while. When the peers respect you, I think it says a lot. And when Keisean Henderson got up to throw, the vibe changed, right? He provided some excitement. He provided some energy. He didn't finish as the MVP. That went to Diabell. But I think in hindsight, I mean, he was neck and neck. It came down to the final day, and Keisean could have been the MVP. The other thing, last year we have him in the Navy All-American Bowl, right? We invite him, and it's like, man, this is pretty boom or bust. Like, we know he's got a huge following. He wears the Davy Crockett hat. I have no idea what this is going to look like. And what does he do? He wins MVP of the game. He's the only quarterback that can move it down the field. So, it is a complete evaluation, right? And he improved significantly, not only like from the statistical standpoint between his junior and senior years, 58% to 71%. Touchdown to INT ratio. He goes from 23 TDs, 6 INTs to 45 and 6 in the same amount of games. His yards per attempt improved. You watch the game tape, you watch the cut-ups. I would love to know his adjusted completion percentage because he's not around a ton of talent. Like, he is hitting wide receivers in the hands and they just aren't making the catch. So, we believe in him. We believe in the human. We believe in what he can be. What I keep saying is stylistically, this guy, you need to picture a Jaden Daniels. You need to picture a Lamar Jackson, right? He can flip the field and connect on the deep ball. He can make these difficult throws, but at the same time, he can also gash you with his legs when he wants to do that. So we're all in on Keisean Henderson. We have been all in on Keisean Henderson. And the reason why I was comfortable, Cooper, if you just want to be frank about Keisean Henderson, last year we had Bryce Underwood number one. Bryce Underwood never went to the Elite 11 finals, right? Bryce Underwood never went to an all-star game and won MVP. I mean, you can make a case that Keisean Henderson's like resume is just as good as Bryce Underwood. And obviously Bryce Underwood has stepped in there at Michigan and been the guy. And, we're never scouting and trying to play matchmaker with these rankings. But to me, Houston is the perfect fit for the hometown kid, right? Connor Wegman comes back. I think you try to find ways to maybe get him involved in some package stuff, but Keisean Henderson should embrace the idea of a red shirt. And it feels like in recent years with some of these five-star quarterbacks, some of these high-profile guys, they've wanted to go there and play right away. And I think you can break them, forcing them when they're not ready.
So Keisean Henderson, obviously one of the most exciting players in the country. It's awesome to see his trajectory and just how far he's come. What I find interesting, Drew, is I want to ask you, how much of a help has these juniors playing in these postseason All-American games, like the All-American Bowl in San Antonio or the Polynesian Bowl out in Hawaii or Orlando at the Under Armour All-American game? how much of a leg up has that really kind of given you, and just in terms of the confidence and conviction that you have in the whole part of the process of really getting to see these guys on good a year earlier in the calendar?
Game changer, right? And I mean, thank God I went to NBC 2 years ago and said, "Hey, you guys need to start getting some juniors in these games." And everyone has followed suit. But the reality is now, Cooper, you know, the seniors, most of them aren't going to play in the postseason All Star games, and with the expanded college football playoff, right? You know, which now could drag for 4 or 5 weeks depending on how far you go. I mean, the colleges want to get these kids on campus and they want to get them in bowl preparation because it's essentially like going through spring practices. You can get a major leg up. You can get them in a developmental program. So it's getting increasingly harder to get the top of the board there as seniors. And the juniors, I mean, it's $1 million opportunity for them to show up because we are going to be more convicted in the evaluation. You bring up, I mean, we're talking about Keisean Henderson, but what about a guy like Darius Gray, our number one ranked offensive lineman, a kid out of Virginia, shows up as a junior and ends up starting alongside a bunch of seniors and holds his own for 3 days in practices. Like, we love Darius Gray on tape, two-way guy. He's also a really talented basketball player, but you begin to wonder, okay, like what really, what is the floor? What is the ceiling with this individual? What does it look like when you put him around those best guys? And it's like, man, Darius Gray's awesome. And if I go back to last year's offensive line group at the All-American Bowl, Ryan Foji is starting games for Oklahoma. Cash Courtney has started games at center for Arkansas. Spike Sowles is starting games for NC State. All of them as true freshmen. Andrew Babalola was going to start as a true freshman at Michigan before he got injured. So you have the sample size of, okay, here's 4 guys that came in and were ready to go in at the Power 4 level. And it's like you have Darius Gray, who was a junior, was on par, if not better than them in that same and type environment. So it's been awesome to get those guys in there. And, it's really, I think, allowed us to get that full evaluation. And at the end of the day, Cooper, I mean, you know this better than anyone. Like, you're going to miss, right? You're not going to get everyone, but you want to be as convicted as you can. You want to gather as much information as you can. You want to color in that circle as much as you can. And getting those guys as juniors has been invaluable. And the other thing, Hudson Standish has brought this up a bunch. Every kid that played in those games for I would say, 75% of the juniors, you can tell that it turns something on for them on the senior tape. Like they've all elevated their play a little bit. So I think getting them in that best on best environment does wonders not only for their recruitments, but just them as players, right? I think it's a business interview. And I think a lot of them are realizing that. And I don't know how many agents listen to this, Cooper, but we still deal with agencies telling guys, oh, he shouldn't play and that he's got nothing to gain. It's like, that is the worst advice you could give any of these individuals. This is again a potential lottery ticket, $1 million opportunity. Everyone in the country is tuning in terms of the personnel world. So it's been awesome to do it. And I don't think it's going away, the juniors.
Don't get me started on the agents. A lot of these guys don't know what they're talking about whatsoever, and they're poisoning the well. And there's a lot of guys that haven't done anything in their career, both on the agency side and the player side, that are getting bad advice, that have an opportunity to go prove themselves, and they don't do it. And think about the guys, man. I mean, Big Squish was one of those guys. Felix
Valdin
Ojo was
Sone
one of those guys.
From Sweden.
Valdin Sone is one of those guys. Keisean Henderson's one of those guys. How many of those guys have come up to you and say, hey, you know what? One, thanks for the opportunity, because you sit on the council for the All-American Bowl in terms of the selection committee, and say, hey, thank you for giving me the opportunity to play in this game. Now, what I do with that opportunity is up to me. But those, like you said, are life-changing opportunities. Keisean Henderson's life changed after the All-American Bowl, and it wasn't because where he was ranked. It's because what he put out in terms of that arena, that level of exposure, playing on NBC. Everybody could see it. You know,
Yeah.
you can't hide it. It's undeniable at that point. So yeah, I mean
Can,
that's so critical to the process.
can we get into Jared Curtis here? Because I think for your listeners and viewers, like, okay, we said it, T minus 12 days to signing day. Keep an eye on this Jared Curtis thing. Keep an eye on this Jared Curtis thing. Number 3 player for us, right? 5-star quarterback. He's committed to Georgia. Vanderbilt has been lingering here. And I think, Cooper, it's fascinating for so many reasons. Like when Tom Loy first told me that, hey, Vandy's getting involved with Jared Curtis, I'm like, are you trolling me? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then the more I marinated on it, I'm like, this makes all of the sense in the world. And I know Vandy's star maybe isn't as bright as it was about 3-4 weeks ago, but they're still potentially in the college football playoff conversation. And how do they stay relevant? And obviously Barton Simmons, the general manager there, has done an excellent job with that roster, but Diego Pavia is gone. Okay. How do they stay in the conversation? How do they be that pit bull that bites other teams in the SEC? Like they got to get someone at quarterback. And Jared Curtis is 6'3", 225 pounds, right? And he's got one of the best arms in the class. He's got one of the best deep balls. I mean, he can make all of the throws, but I think what a lot of people don't realize is Jared Curtis is like a power runner, right? Like he played some running back during the youth. Like he could move the chains with his legs. So you think about Tim Beck's offense, okay? I'm not saying he's Diego Pavia, but he can do some of those same things, and he's going to give you more in the passing attack. So if I'm Vanderbilt, right, and I'm a supporter, I'm a decision maker there, I'm a booster, I'm an alum, if Clark Lee and Tim Beck and Barton Simmons think that you have a chance to get Jared Curtis, who wants to be a day one starter, and it's looking like that path at Georgia isn't what it once was with Gunnar Stockton's emergence, then you push all the chips in, because Jared Curtis instantly becomes one of the biggest names in school history, right? You could have a Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks. It'd be Jay Cutler, Diego Pavia, and Jared Curtis, right? And it keeps you in the conversation. So, you know, talking with Tom Loy, it just sounds like this is one to watch, Cooper, Jared Curtis. And, my player comp for him, a lot of people are going to laugh on this, but Hudson Santa says I need to roll with it. It's Jay Cutler. Like, Jay Cutler was a guy that moved a lot. Jay Cutler started every game in his career at Vanderbilt, and the player comp would be Jay Cutler if he ends up at Georgia. And there's a chance Mike Bobo, Kirby Smart, they hang on to Jared Curtis. But I hate using this term, Cooper. It's so embarrassing to have in a scouting report. But dude, Jared Curtis has got some swag. He's got some swag to his game, right? Like he can do the Mahomes off-platform stuff, and he has been a fighter pilot this season at Nashville Christian. They played Innsworth there in Tennessee, which has a ton of FBS players, and he led an awesome victory. So I think we wondered about the level of competition he's faced, and he has silenced all critics. And this is one to keep an eye on, because the other thing, Cooper, I think every year the past 4 or 5 years, we've seen a 5-star quarterback change his mind at the last minute. Last year was Bryce Underwood, LSU to Michigan. Was it 3 years ago? We saw Dante Moore, Oregon to UCLA. Like there's usually one of these, and nothing has shaken free yet. So Jared Curtis is the one to keep an eye on.
Local kid, early playing time, money the same. If Vandy can knock off Tennessee and somehow sneak into the CFP, it might just be enough, you know? And I'm with you. I like the Jay Cutler comp. He's definitely got some swag. He's got some confidence and frame ready from a collegiate standpoint too. And if you're Vandy, like there's no harm rolling with that kid. And I hate to say that because they are continuing to elevating the standard there just in terms of what's expected. But there's no year-to-year pressure on Clark Lee if he decided to roll out Jared Curtis from day one. right? Like people
100%.
people would understand it. All right, Drew, let's wrap it there because we are almost at an hour, or actually over an hour. And like I said, Andrew underscore Ivins is the place that you can find this man, the director of scouting for 24/7 Sports. There is nobody better in the business. Make sure to follow him, his team, Hudson Standish, Gabe Brooks, do a phenomenal job. They are very excited that signing day is going to be in the books here in 2 weeks, and then it's on to the 27s, and it's on to the 28s, and then it's on to the 29s. Then you'll be scouting your son before you know it, Andrew.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this, dude. Now that you're like fully engulfed in this transfer portal stuff, dude, like how crazy is this? I think December is going to be crazy in terms of like just guys making it clear they're entering the portal. Am I wrong?
No, it's starting to ramp up. Right now, it's kind of like there's different levels to it in terms of the D2 guys are starting to jump in now that the seasons are wrapping up, and then it's going to be the Ivy League guys next, and then we'll ramp up obviously to the FBS level. But you know what's crazy? Like the last comment I'll make on this is like you're sitting there. I remember even just a year ago, you'd be like, oh, I'm watching this guy from Morehouse. I'm watching this guy from Livingston. I'm watching this guy from Anderson College in South Carolina, all these places I never knew existed. And I'm like, oh, that's an intriguing guy. Like he's got some G5 kind of maybe potential starter traits. And you know, you have all these agencies out there, Drew. We know a lot of these guys are always hitting you up and looking for an advantage. And you go to the kid's profile and it's like they already have representation. And it's like, wow, man, like how quickly this world has evolved to where I'm looking at a running back that's been at Colorado School of Mines for 4 years. And it's like, yeah, I already got an agent, I already have ACC, Big 12 interest. And it's like, wow. You know, it's not like these kids entering the portal because of the advice of their parents. Maybe that is the case. But everybody's got representation. And that part to me is super fascinating. And yeah, the D2 stuff is crazy because you go from watching PFF to you're back to watching Huddle or Twitter highlights where they posted. And, you know, it's like you got 3 minutes of hand-picked plays by the player to really kind of project where these guys are going to be.
I don't think they have practice cut-ups to.
No, there's a kid out of Slippery Rock in Pennsylvania that I graded yesterday. Gave him an 86, so like a serviceable Power 4 grade. This kid was also on the track and field team and ripped off a 10.13 in the 100 meter this year.
He was on my For You page, and I watched
I
the
was
video.
just like, holy smokes. And then you watch him, and he's a little slight. He's like 165 pounds. And you see him move, and you're like, dude, typically when you think 10.13, who do you think of? Like Nick Harbor, right? Just a linear, straight line mover. This kid is like long, fluid, reactionary. And you're like, holy smokes, dude. Like, how did this kid end up at Slippery Rock in Pennsylvania?
I saw him make like a tackle and backside pursuit. I was like, whoa.
He's physical too. Like, you know, like he plays a lot bigger. Like he plays like he's 180. So that's the cool part about the portal. That's what I like. But
you know what? You say all these guys already have representation. I feel like it's Pony Express-esque. Like these agents just going around these D2 schools and sitting in the parking lot and are like, hey, why don't you enter?
Well, they're right. They're just, I mean, you know, it's like even a blind squirrel catches a nut every now and then. It's like, yeah, I hope this guy can play. But dude, there's deals out there. Imagine if the agent, which a lot of these agents are getting 10%, which is crazy stuff. Because at the NFL level, you're getting 3 to 5%, depending on kind of where you are or what you're kicking back to the agent. And, you know, there are guys out there that are D2 players that are getting picked up as depth pieces that don't even play. Emergency, right? Type of serviceable players, just a body that are getting $250,000, $300,000 at SEC programs. Dude, so imagine, you know,
I don't know what I would do with that money.
Kicking 10% back to that agent, that's a good payday. You know?
I just think about 21-year-old Andrew Ivins getting $300,000.
This whole thing is really the financial literacy piece of this is really, really important. And I don't say that as like the adult. I'm with you. Like if somebody handed me 50 grand in college, I'd have no idea what to do with that money. I know what to do with it. Would I actually do what I needed to do? Probably not. But dude, I hear stories at like second tier Power 4 programs from guys that I've worked with in strength conditioning departments. They're like, dude, this, I'm not even going to say the school because it would just blow your mind. But he goes, our guys get done with a workout on Friday at like 8 a.m. and they're all off to Miami. They just fly to Miami or they fly to LA for the weekend, and then they're back on my. And it's like, dude, you know how much you know how quickly you're going to burn through that money. One, if you're flying to those places. Two, that those are the places that you're whining and dining. And then the other thing he said was like, there's a handful of guys that we are really, really worried about from a gambling standpoint.
Oof.
He goes, they've never had money. They don't know how to deal with their money. So they get into gambling. And I'm talking about actually betting on professional sports. I'm not talking about, Terry Rozier with the Miami Heat. But it's like, dude, this combination, I think there's going to be something that comes out in the next 5 to 10 years of study of like, hey man, these guys are making, a couple $100,000, and then they get out in the real world and you can't play in the NFL. You can't play in the UFL. And it's like, all right, here's $60,000 a year. Welcome to the show. How are you going to deal with it? Right. I don't know. And it's kind of dark and it's kind of ominous, but I kind of have that tucked away in the back of my mind,
Heard the same, man.
Yeah, not good.
Well, hey, Coop, man, I love this. I love you. This was awesome to be on this.
It's good to be back, man.
Hopefully we can chop it up soon. I just, man, your December's going to be slippery rock transfers.
Slippery rock. I mean, like I said, dude, a lot of colleges I've never heard of before. I did watch a 6'5", 290-pound 3 technique from Grand Valley State yesterday that I was like, sometimes when you're in the D2 mode, you got to take a step back and you're like, all right, I see a guy that's got size. I see a quick step. Like I can't overreact. You know what I'm saying? Like
you gotta pinch yourself a little bit.
You gotta be careful. Like you gotta understand there's a lot of time. Like dude, we're gonna be grading these guys till June. It's just the reality of it,
Well, yeah, Coop, I think I'm on like a film detox. Like I can't, I because it all starts running together. You're like,
ideally, you need to do what college staffers and coaches aren't capable of doing because the calendar doesn't let them. Us being in the media space, your next 2 to 3 months should just be like process oriented on how do we get better, take a big step back.
Yeah.
And like, I don't really even want to watch tape,
I struggled to watch the NFL game the other night. I'm like, I can't.
Dude, by the time you get to Sunday, it's like, I don't, because you jeopardize the love and the passion that you have for it if it's just 7 days a week. I love basketball because I'm just a fan of the Pelicans.
I'm dialed into the NBA potential #1 pick situation.
Well, guess what,
and you want to know why, Cooper? I was explaining this to my wife. I'm like, hey, it's someone else's ranking. So like I watch Boozer and I'm like, how is this guy #2 in the mock drafts? Like there's someone better than him.
Love
so
that.
I think it's always fun to do that.
I'm in the mock draft scene, by the way. I don't know if I sent you the first one that I did.
Let's just tuck as many 5 stars as we can up in there, buddy.
We'll do what we can. Andrew Ivins, appreciate it, brother, as always. We will have Andrew back on if he will join us. Hopefully you and I will be in San Antonio, at least briefly, together for the All-American Bowl, which I can't wait. And then postseason, I also do want to kind of get into some like conversations of like
the nerd stuff.
Yeah, let's plant the flag on like Coy Parrish, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the good stuff. All right, guys, make sure to follow Andrew Ivins. This show, make sure to like and subscribe. I've said that. You can follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/CoopsPetag. Also, leave a rating, leave a review on podcasts as well. And AirPod fell out. We're going to have John Talty on. John Talty been bringing the noise on the coaching search stuff. Guy's been unbelievable. We're going to have him on sometime this week, I shall say, because this episode, as I'm talking to Andrew, will come out on Monday. John Talty, we'll have him on next week as well. All right, guys, we appreciate it. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.